Hey, this is Neil from Icon Vehicle Dynamics, and I'm here with Scott, and we are in the nirvana of shocks, right?
Shockvana.
Shockvana here. What you're going to see is Scott's going to take you through the series of shocks. It's kind of where it all started with Icon Vehicle Dynamics. You're also going to see Ford Bronco. You're going to see GM, Ram, race car, everything that we can talk about from sourcing everything that you can drive on. Again, this is where it all started with Icon Vehicle Dynamics. How long ago, Scott?
Icon started in 2008, so we're right at the, what's that, 14 years?
Perfect.
Math, something like that? Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
So, and it just keeps getting better and better and better. And there are different ways for different companies to drive. Obviously, we've got other competitors out there that do an amazing job in it. Some of them are amazing in the rock. Some of them are amazing at desert racing. Icon started in the middle, the performance truck program, and has kind of gone from there. So our sweet spot is kind of sticking right in here, right, Scott?
I would agree, yeah.
Okay.
Where the meat and potatoes of the what's available in the kits is going to be kind of in the middle here, but you have performance on either end of that spectrum.
Absolutely. So it's all what we hope is a line of insanely high quality shock performance products. And I'm going to have Scott, because 14 years later, this guy has been a part of all of this as we walk through it. So Scott, let's start over here with the 2.0s. Give everybody just kind of an idea as you walk through and get up into these
Sure.
just dynamite looking.
So our 2-inch diameter, or the 2.0 aluminum series, is our entry-level shock. I should mention that just like all of our shock absorbers, they're all fully serviceable, retunable. You'll never really have to buy new shocks again. You just keeping them maintained over time, and they function just like a brand new shock would.
Perfect.
So they are available with an internal reservoir and also remote reservoirs for many applications.
Nope.
The reservoir will be right here. The purpose of the reservoir is to increase the oil and the nitrogen volume within the shock. So you've got more heat capacity to work with. A shock's basic job is to convert kinetic energy from the suspension and the chassis moving to heat, and then dissipate that heat back into the air. And so if you're using it off-road, and you're putting more heat into the shock at a faster rate than it's able to cool down,
Yep.
that can cause problems from a performance standpoint. You get fade and loss of control and overall bad ride quality. And that sort of heat spikes, you could say, will also do a number on the service life of the shock and really shorten the mileage that you can expect to get out of the seals and the oil before you're having to rebuild it and replace all that.
So this just allows you to dissipate that heat faster based on how much you're going to pump that shock. And looking forward to that in an adventure series type of program. If you're going to go off-road, get to this, don't worry about it.
Exactly.
And
worth the
good.
investment. If the truck is being used off-road, the reservoirs are worth the money. They won't necessarily feel any different, but it'll just be more consistent when you're working it hard.
Let's go to the 2.5.
So the next up in the 2.5 series is our EXP line. I guess I should say this would be a coilover here for most
This is an OE coilover for the Bronco that you're at right now, correct?
Correct, yeah. This would be the utilizing the OE coil spring with our full 2.5-inch aluminum series shock inside of it. It's the same tuning that you get in our full threaded body coilovers. The difference is going to be a much lower cost because you're not incorporating all the extra cost of the spring and all the spring hardware. You've already got that on the truck, so we utilize that again. And also just much better damping that you're going to get out of a 2-inch diameter shock or something comparable from one of our competitors that's similarly sized. Having that big shock, although these don't have a reservoir, is doing the same thing by increasing that volume of the nitrogen and oil internally. So even compared to some of the OE shocks that may include small reservoirs that these are intended to replace, you still get better cooling properties because the total surface area and volume within the shock is greater.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
And then moving on up from there, I guess we'll kind of skip to this guy. This would be our full threaded body coilover, available for pretty much every application that we offer. Adjustable lift height you can set anywhere you want, compared to, say, the EXP series, where you've got the different snap ring grooves where you have a few settings to choose from. Here you can set it anywhere within its adjustment range to really fine-tune your stance. This particular coilover also has the same internal reservoir as what we were talking about with the EXP, but most of them are available with remote reservoirs as well.
Okay.
So same concept applies. Even though this is a bigger shock than a 2.0, a truck that is going to be used off-road would really benefit from that added reservoir. Next step up from there, I guess usually more so the rear of the truck, but it depends on what truck we're talking about. We have our full 2.5-inch aluminum series shock absorber line. Find it again on the rear of mini trucks, but the fronts of Super Duties, Dodges, Jeeps all use the same shock that is separate from your coil spring. And we offer them in either a remote reservoir with a hose, like this, or in the piggyback configuration. Same function, it's just really where that reservoir is mounted.
Where it makes sense on your vehicle.
Correct.
Your vehicle will have a good direction of where to put that on.
Right. There's only so much real estate to work with, especially when you're factoring, a big tire that's you've got to steer, and under different articulation positions, there's stuff gets in the way. So if when we can, we try to run the piggyback because it looks cool and it's easy to mount. No worry of hanging another bracket somewhere on the frame, but every once in a while, there's just no way around it. We got to put that thing somewhere else, so we'll run a hose to make that happen.
Outstanding.
From there, we have the adjustable version.
There we go.
Which would be we call it the CDC valve, right there, CDC. And it utilizes a knob to control the damping force created on the compression stroke. So this does not affect rebound at all. We left that alone just because we're going for ease of use. The compression is the one that you'll find the reason to tune the most, whether it be terrain or a heavier load in the vehicle. Say if you put a bunch of stuff in the bed of the truck, just running it on a stiffer setting will work better, even if you're not taking it off-road or doing anything different than you normally would on your daily commute. So she's got 10 settings from soft to hard. The number 4 setting on this shock is the equivalent of our baseline tune that we would be running, say, in the non-adjustable version of that shock. So you can go 3 softer settings than our standard tune, or 6 firmer for more performance. And all of the piggyback and remote reservoir 2.5s will run our internal bump zone, which will have this manifold located around the shock body here, about a third of the way down from the top, and how far down will vary by application. But this creates multiple zones within the shock absorber that give you different damping forces. So it's softer in the main zone, but once, say, if you hit a big bump or you jump the truck or something, and the piston passes past this manifold, that damping force is effectively increased by about 25% or so. And so it controls the bottom outs much better, and is a lot more stable coming off of them as well. So the CDC valve is typically available in all of our higher stages of the kit, of the different kits, I should say. And is available for pretty much all of our vehicle applications as well. And I highly recommend it. Just that adjustable nature of things gives you the most versatility. Sorry, go ahead.
Can you get the dampening on the 2.0?
There is no adjustable damping on the 2.0.
Okay,
no,
so jump up and do it right the first time.
Usually, yes.
Okay,
so,
gotcha.
Mentioning that, however, if you do, say, buy a 2.5-inch without the CDC valve now, and you would like to add that on later, that is an upgrade that is easily done as part of the rebuild process.
Okay.
And something that's a frequent upgrade, it's very cost effective.
Good.
Taking that adjustment a bit further, we also now have our CDE valve available, which is the kind of the latest and greatest, and really going to give you the best ride without any input from you.
This is the electronic version.
Correct, yes.
Got it.
So it utilizes, instead of the CDC valve, has the CDE valve that lives in the reservoir here. And it's an electronically actuated valve that basically has the same range of damping adjustment as the CDC valve. But it's all happening instantaneously. Every 40 milliseconds, that shock is changing.
So you'll Bluetooth into that, set it up based on the vehicle that you have, and you've got the ability to set that. If you're going to go out, do you reset it, or do you just basically say, this is a setup that I have, push it to where you want, and it's going to manage itself in 10 different settings, I believe?
You could do it either way, honestly.
Okay.
So you can change the baseline settings whenever you would like. However, from my experience, you'll find that you typically have them all set up the way that you like it.
Okay.
And it'll just kind of stay that. Once you get them dialed, there's not a whole lot of need to change those baselines unless you're either changing the setup of the truck, like say added a bunch of weight to the back, then changing the different tuning would be better. But for the most part, the algorithm and the G-force sensors in the IIC module are going to be sensing what the truck is doing and going from your baseline and just taking it from there.
Perfect. That engineering is amazing. And it's so, the technology is advanced, and it allows you so many opportunities to just set something up and drive it in multiple conditions. I mean, you've invested in this, and now you can pretty much use it however you want in performance.
Pretty much. I was stoked when we came out with it, just for the fact that I didn't have to get out and turn the knobs anymore. Just because on any given trail, I would do that probably way more than I should have, just because I'm a shock nerd, and that's what we do. But so when I was doing my testing with it, I would have it up on my my phone on my little mount there, and as I would come into a section that I would want to change the shocks, I would quickly just start stabbing the buttons to tune it, and I realized right away that like this thing will just do it for you. Like it's once you kind of trust it a little bit to let it do its thing, there's really no need for that panic adjustment, because you don't want it to bottom out on this big bump coming or something like that. It really does it all for you much quicker than you ever could.
Outstanding. Take us to the next series here.
So
there's rebound, compression, gauges and valves and tubes.
Correct. So these are basically our bypass line of shocks, and we offer them in a couple of different diameters. Primarily, you'll see our 2.5-inch diameter that we offer for most applications. These would run a 2-tube system, one compression tube and one rebound tube. That allows you to adjust the compression and rebound independently compared to just the compression stroke with the CDC. And you have 28 settings per knob compared to just 10 settings. So the level of tuning that is available here is very detailed, I guess you could say. Kind of the downside of that is if you're not necessarily a suspension enthusiast that's looking to really get the most out of it, that can be a whole lot to bring under control. And for those guys, I always recommend the CDC valve. But if you're looking to go fast and get the most out of the suspension, the bypasses or the CDEV will give it to you.
I gotta believe if you're heading south, if you're going to Baja, if you're going to run desert, but you've got rocks somewhere in between that, this is where you go out and test. This is what gets your car dialed in.
Pretty much, yes. Yeah, the level of control that this will give you is just significantly higher than you get out of the CDC or even the CDE valve. But you do have to get out and you have to turn the knobs. So it's not a quick change. That's where the CDE valve really stands out. But we're breaking the shock into those multiple zones, and we're taking that even further with the bigger shocks. Like here we have the Raptor, we're running 2 compression tubes and 1 rebound tube. So now you effectively split the shock up into more zones, so now you can control each one independently and make it a truly progressive shock through its stroke, and just perform better, really. I keep going back to the performing better, but that's what it's all about.
That's what it's all about. What do you have at the end over here for us?
This is another 3-inch shock line. This is our Coilover series. That it doesn't offer the external bypass adjustment like the rear shocks do for the 3.0s, but this has the CDC valve, just like the 2.5 series. Same adjustment there, but this also has an internal bump stop. It's a 2-piston system. So you have your main piston, which is your large 3-inch diameter, and mounted above it on a riser is a small, like a 2-inch diameter piston, very similar to what we use in the 2.0s. And on the inside of this cup here, on this top cap is a cup. And at full bottom, that second piston basically nests inside that cup and produces a literal internal bump stop inside the coilover. So it takes the concept from our bump zone here and ramps it up to the same level as you get out of a bypass shock.
Is that bypass a bump stop?
You could call it that. We don't. It would be more of an internal bypass sort of thing, but we don't really market it as that. Okay. But it is bypassing other things, and so it falls in that category. Right. But we call it the internal bump stop. It really lets you stuff, that a wheel, and it just soaks it up and takes that harsh bottom out of it.
So we're representing 6 or 8 different makes of automobiles here. How many active vehicle applications does Icon build shocks for?
Ooh, pretty much anything late model that you would want to put shocks on would be the easiest way to explain that.
How far do you go back? 2008, 2007 that I know of?
Oldest app that I know would be like the 80 series Toyota Land Cruiser. We go back to 91.
Okay.
And some of the international stuff, like for the Nissan Patrols, are old, and they kind of overlap into the late 80s. Okay. But they're not all that popular these days, or at least on this side of the world. Very popular elsewhere. We can also make shocks for anything. Is the easiest,
perfect.
Most things. And while we don't necessarily talk about it a whole lot, we do also have a custom shock program available. So if you've got like a random old Jeep or some random truck that you want shocks for, we can build them to fit with a few measurements provided by you, and we can make it happen. Just build it off of our normal family of parts. We've always kind of projected ourselves as the Apple of shocks, is the easiest way to explain it. Okay. And we've done lots of cool little tech things that is not being incorporated into mainstream shock absorbers. You'll find a lot of this stuff on race shocks, because that's where it all came from, effectively. And we've shrunk it down and incorporated that technology in a bolt-on application for your daily driver. When you're talking components and what we're made of, all of our aluminum series shock absorbers all use an impact extruded cylinder. It's all one piece, so there's no threading on of top caps like you'll see on some of the other shocks here. And these are also hard anodized, so it's a very consistent finish compared to, say, the steel body shocks that use a cadmium finish, where there's a little bit of inconsistency. And that was the main reason to switch over to this. It just holds up better over time, especially in rustier environments.
Okay.
Going back to kind of what sets us apart, a lot of our shocks will also include neat little upgrades and such things like shin guards here to help protect your shafts. Certain other shocks will include shock boots. We try to incorporate those on applications where we know that particular component is going to be a problem. Like, for example, this on the Raptor, just because where it mounts on the Raptor, those shafts tend to just get blasted, and the shin guard takes care of that issue, and all that is serviceable as well as they wear out over time.
You've got what looks like a filter in the upper left over here, a cooler.
Correct. So this is our finned reservoirs. They are available on our second-gen Raptor coilovers and rear shocks, but are available as a service upgrade for pretty much any of our 2.5 or 3-inch diameter shocks. It's just same reservoir as what we would run on the normal units. Yep. Just it's an extrusion with basically a heat sink built into it. It's over 125% increase in surface area. So not only does it look super cool, it does a very effective job at cooling the shock more so than your standard reservoir. So for a truck that gets driven heavily off-road,
Yep.
way to go. Race cars, we run those on Tom Ways' race car.
Yep.
Help keep that thing cool. And then it also mounts using almost like a Picatinny rail from a rifle or something. So it mounts on the vehicle, just kind of free floats on the frame, and there's no hose clamps or any unsightly business that cover up the outside of it.
All right, so we've gotten through a ton of information on here. Before we leave, warranty. Talk about a little bit of warranty on here.
Absolutely. So at Icon, we've always had what we think is one of the best warranties in the industry. All of our shock absorbers carry a 1-year warranty against any manufacturer defects or failures. And all of the coil springs that would be included on any of our coilovers are a lifetime warranty against any sort of sagging or breaking. So any issues like that will usually work themselves out fairly quickly after install. We'll get them straightened out and get you new parts back on the truck. But after that, these are all that serviceable units, so that you just keep them rebuilt every few years and they work like a brand new shock.
Super. This eye candy is out of here. If you do want to go deep on shock talk, give us a call. Give us a call at Icon Vehicle Dynamics. Go to the website, iconvehicledynamics.com, and learn more. Again, give us a call. We'd love to talk to you about it. Thanks for watching.